Hey guys, hi, welcome back once again. My name is Vaishali and today I'd like to share my views on loneliness and being alone. So when we hear a lot of people talk about loneliness, they are essentially talking about a feeling. Whereas they mostly say, I feel so lonely, while being alone in itself doesn't address the feeling of despair of being left out. For being is a state of existence from moment to moment and thereby more of a choice. And if it is a moment-to-moment choice, it calls for mindful presence with the awareness that it can always be changed, or rather, one has the choice to make those changes mindfully. That is, one is making the choice to choose their own company, to be in their own company at that point in time. Now we have few essential needs of food, shelter, clothing, and procreation or reproduction. The second and the third essentially associated with safety, which ensures the survival of species, and the last one born out of the same need and the thrust towards keeping our kind staying alive. These are not just human needs, these are needs shared by all living species, single-celled or multicellular. However, humans also have the need and the desire to be heard, to be seen, to be understood, not only just for our role plays, which are in keeping with our beliefs, our culture, our genders, our age, our religious backgrounds, essentially for all the ideas that curate our identities or our ego identities, the aspects, the ideas that the I identifies with. But we also want to be heard, to be seen, to be understood for our very core essence, beyond our role plays. For every role play has an expiry date or a retirement date. The way it works for actors enacting a role for a movie throughout the movie, after which it comes to an end. After which the role play comes to an end. Unless, of course, that person enacting that role has gotten stuck in that role play due to others' perception of them. Like it used to happen at one point in time with a lot of people or actors enacting certain role which got them fixed in that image of that character role. And in my understanding, loneliness creeps in when, despite being in a crowd, in a herd, we feel unheard, unseen, or misunderstood, and thereby we are left feeling unwanted, of being abandoned, wherein our presence truly doesn't matter beyond our role play. And to a part of our nervous system that evolved out of the wild, through the wild, by surviving the wild, that invariably still stays with us, is still intact in our nervous system. It looks something like this. And thereby when it gets activated, when it thinks that it's been left alone, it tries to run back to its tribe wherein it feels it'll safely survive. For alone in the wilderness, hapless and helpless, it could have been torn or eaten alive. Or even as a human infantile child, just like the baby bear, it barely has any survival mechanisms to help it stay alive. Quite naturally forgetting when it's on the run to survive that it has moved out of the wild. Now I'd definitely like to reinstate that solitude can be a choice or can be even enforced. And quite naturally when it's enforced, it's not a self-made choice. A choice chosen and made by the self and for the self. But when solitude or being alone is a choice, it's for a period of time, contrary to when it's enforced. For when I checked for the root meaning of the word being, it talked of essence, of existence. A state of presence at that point in time or time frame where we choose to be with ourselves, where we give ourselves the permission to be our soul and solo companion. And as Jay Shetty would put it, solitude is the strength of being alone, of choosing to be alone, while loneliness is the feeling of being abandoned by others, by external factors, and at times in order to not feel abandoned by others, by external factors, many of us choose to abandon ourselves. Of course, more unconsciously rather than consciously, as a result of that part of our primitive nervous system getting reactivated, and thereby invariably ending up feeling more lonely, isolated, unheard, unseen, disconnected, almost neglected and forgotten, not only by others, but also by our own inner selves. So let's then try and see where, when, why we did implicitly mix up the concept of being alone as a choice towards experiencing solitude or one's own company with loneliness. Where, when and why at some point or the other we have abandoned ourselves so that we don't feel the pinch and the pain of being abandoned by others at the cost of abandoning our own inner selves. And in hindsight, even reflecting, if it is so easy for us to abandon ourselves, why and how will it not be difficult for someone else? If it's so easy for us to be disconnected with our own inner selves, why will it not be so easy for someone else? And even reflecting as to how abandoning ourselves has served us at those points in time. Because only when it has served us in some way or the other can we keep repeating the same thing over and over again? Are we doing it consciously or is it happening unconsciously? And of course, it goes with the realization that we are as much intrapersonal as we are interpersonal species. And in our quest to experience solitude as a choice, we should not create a comfortable bubble where we confine our abilities to navigate our interpersonal skills, which calls for both vulnerability and the ability to negotiate boundaries. For vulnerability builds deeper connections, but without boundaries, it gradually erodes those connections as well, not only with others, but with ourselves also. And being mindfully aware that since being alone is a choice, unless it's enforced, our choices will need to evolve with time. So let's just pause briefly and reflect on the interweaving interplay of all of these aspects, and I will see you once again the next week. Till then, stay tuned in. And people, if you do like the contextual content of these videos, please do like, share and subscribe.